The observation deck of the Meridian Accord hummed with quiet tension as Ambassador Marcus Ward studied the holographic star chart floating before him. Delegates from 11 species stood in a loose semicircle, their attention split between the map and the small, unremarkable blue system pulsing at its edge. Human space, the Coalition's great chart stretched across 9,000 light-years, a shimmering lattice of trade routes, colonies, and territorial boundaries painstakingly assembled over 3 centuries of interstellar diplomacy. Every species had contributed data. Every species except one had been fully mapped, cross-referenced, and cataloged in exhaustive detail. Earth's sector simply stopped. A soft gradient of gray where the human's territory ought to continue, as if some cartographer's hand had trembled and pulled back. Ambassador Ward, said Councilor Threnn, an Ithaca diplomat whose 4 eyes tracked independently across the projection. Your species has occupied this region for the better part of 2 centuries. Why does the Great Chart show nothing beyond the perimeter stars? Marcus had been asked this question in some form for the last 6 years of his ambassadorship. He always gave the same answer. Because that's where our surveys ended, he said mildly. We haven't had the resources to push further. It wasn't a lie. It also wasn't the truth. Beside him, Vice Ambassador Lena Ortiz kept her expression carefully neutral, though Marcus caught the faint tightening at the corner of her mouth. She'd been there when the perimeter fleet returned 18 years ago, what was left of it. She understood, the way he did, why the map ended where it ended. Councilor Threnn wasn't satisfied. None of them ever were, not really. But tonight something in the Ithican's posture suggested he intended to press further than diplomatic custom allowed. There are rumors, Threnn said, lowering his voice as if that would matter in a room wired with translation feeds, that your survey vessels encountered something, that an entire fleet was lost in a single engagement, and that Earth chose silence over disclosure. The room's ambient noise seemed to fall away. Delegates who had been murmuring among themselves turned, sensing blood in the water. Marcus set down his glass. He'd known this moment would come eventually, had rehearsed it. In fact, during long nights aboard the Accord station, staring at the same gray void on the chart that everyone else found so unsettling. You're right, he said. There was an engagement. The admission rippled through the assembly like a physical shockwave. Species that had spent decades speculating about human secrecy now leaned forward, hungry for the confirmation they'd always suspected but never received. 18 years ago, the Kestrel Expeditionary Group 6 ships, 4,000 personnel crossed the perimeter stars into what we now call the Hollow Reach. They were mapping, cataloging, doing exactly what your survey teams do in unclaimed space. Marcus's voice remained level, but Lena noticed his hand had curled slightly against the podium's edge. They found something living out there, something old, something that had already cataloged us. A Valkyrian delegate, silent until now, spoke in a rasp translated a half-second late. A hostile species? We don't know what to call it, Marcus admitted. It didn't communicate. It didn't negotiate. It simply removed 5 of the 6 ships from existence within 40 minutes. No wreckage. No distress signal cut short. They were there, and then the tracking data showed nothing like erasing a line from a ledger. Silence. Even Threnn's 4 eyes had stopped their independent roaming, fixed now entirely on the ambassador. The 6th ship, the Holloway, survived only because its captain ordered immediate retreat the instant the first vessel vanished. She didn't ask questions. She didn't gather data. She ran, and she kept running until she crossed back into chartered space, and even then she didn't stop accelerating for 6 more hours. Marcus allowed himself a small, humorless smile. Her name was Captain Diane Reyes. She's a rear admiral now. She still has nightmares. And Earth chose to hide this, Threnn said slowly, rather than warn the Coalition of a threat at our shared border? No, Marcus said, and something shifted in his voice, not defensive, but firm, edged with the particular steel that had defined humanity's diplomacy since the beginning. Earth chose to stop mapping that direction. We didn't hide the threat. We contained our curiosity about it. There's a difference. He gestured, and the holographic chart reconfigured. The gray void at humanity's border sharpening into something new, a dense lattice of automated sensor buoys, listening posts, and dormant defense platforms Marcus hadn't shown the coalition until this exact moment. For 18 years, we've watched that boundary, silently. We didn't send another expedition to satisfy anyone's curiosity. Ours included, because 4,000 people already paid for that curiosity once. We built a wall of eyes instead of ships, and we've been standing at it every single day since, so that whatever's out there stays exactly where it is. He looked around the assembly, meeting each species representative in turn. You've spent years wondering why the map ends at human space. It ends there because we decided some questions aren't worth another crew's life to answer. We chose to guard the door rather than knock on it again. Threnn was quiet for a long moment, his 4 eyes finally settling into unison, fixed on Marcus with something that might have been respect, or might have been fear. Your species is strange, Ambassador, he said at last. Any other race would have either fled the sector entirely, or thrown fleet after fleet at the mystery until it was solved or you were annihilated. We're not most species, Marcus said simply. We just stayed. We watch. We wait. And if that thing out there ever moves toward the rest of you, we'll be the first line standing between it and everyone else. No one at the table had a response to that. Beyond the viewport, the gray edge of the Great Chart pulsed on, unexplained to the galaxy, but understood, at last, by the only people who needed to understand it.